everyone. Welcome to Spark It Up Live here at Spark Business Consulting, Facebook Live, Spark It Up Tuesdays. You know what they are. Today, we're going to talk about 1099s. So, if you're a business owner and you're not sure about them, or you don't even know about the changes that happened in 2020, you're going to want to watch this. If you're not a business owner, move on. This will be really boring for you. But as a business owner, as we know, comes with a lot of responsibilities. And one of the biggest ones is issuing the 1099s. So, first thing, not a choice. I actually had a potential client reach out to us the other day, and I believe they thought it was a choice. Like, well, I'm not sure if I want to make them employees or if I want to pay them on a 1099. Sorry, you don't get to make that choice. The government makes that distinction for us. So, as you can imagine, the government, state, federal, want to make everybody employee, right? Because they get taxes paid in, they get Social Security paid in, they get unemployment paid in. So, of course, they want to make everybody employee, but that's just not always the case. But they're going to want to make it the case. So, whenever you pay any vendor, there are certain things that really need to happen to cover you so that one, you're compliant, and two, you can take that expense. So, for example, if you're if you own a construction company, you're a general contractor, you can hire, of course you can, but you would be hiring electricians, plumbers, maybe landscapers, things like that. And you can 1099 them. You should, because those are legit subcontractors. You need those different types of skill sets and laborers to perform the job of building that house, remodeling, whatever it is that you're doing. So here's what you need to do. With anyone, any business, any person especially, but any business, right before you actually give them their very first payment, you're supposed to give them a Form W-9. That is free on the irs.gov website. We can get that over to you as well if you'd like. It's just called a W-9. It's a very simple one-page form. Technically, and it even says this on the IRS website, you're supposed to hand everyone you pay that form, everyone that's not an employee, that form. And all they do is they fill out their legal business name and address, what entity status they are. So that'll be sole proprietor, LLC, C Corp, S Corp, partnership, whatever it is. And then their federal ID, which you should have. So that's it. And then they sign it saying, yeah, this is who I am. So when you get that W-9 form back, you now know if they are not incorporated. So if they're not an S Corp and if they're not a C Corp, then you're going to want to issue them a 1099. There are very few exceptions to that. So overall, just put that in your brain. If they're not an S Corp and they're not a C Corp, they need to get a 1099 from you so that you can take that expense. So an example of that would be, again, if we look back to a general contractor and he's about to hire an electrician, and as they're getting their paperwork underway or before he pays him, he says, hey, just fill out this quick W-9 form for me. And the subcontractor fills it out and says he's an LLC. Okay, great. Now we know. And what we would do is we'd flag that vendor as an LLC, which means they're going to get a 1099 at the end of the year. All 1099s go out in January. They're all due out by January 31st. So you really only have that 1 month to get all these out. That's why it is major crunch time here at the Spark offices. On the other side, if this contractor hires an electrician or a plumber and they get that W-9 form back and it says that they're an S Corp, no bother. You just file that away in that vendor file and you don't have to flag them as a 1099 vendor, and you're all set and they don't need to get one. That's just the way the government does it. So there are a few other little things that go on in there, but those are the big things. What you can't do, let's see, if I was a florist, let's say, and I hired people and they're going to do the same thing that I do, which is make flower arrangements for the most part, I can't 1099 that person. If you're going to bring someone on to do the same work that your company does, you have to make them an employee, even if it's a small engagement. That is just the way the law reads. So that person becomes an employee. But if I'm a florist and I hire a lawyer, or if I hire an accountant, or if I hire maybe a delivery service, those might all be 1099 vendors because they aren't arranging flowers. They're not doing the work what you do. So those are legitimate. So every Monday here at the Spark office, we have a huddle. So we call Monday morning huddle. And we meet for about 45 minutes to an hour and we just go over what's up, what is what. We have a weekend update, try and do some fun things, and then we do our highlights. And of course, in the month of January, it's all about 1099s, especially this year because the government came out with a new 1099 form. The last 100 years, it was called a 1099 miscellaneous, MISC. This year, they're changing it to a 1099 NEC. That's for non-employee compensation. Yeah, non-employee compensation is what it's called. So it's a new form that you have to fill out for everyone that you paid money to in the calendar year of 2020 that is not an employee and that is not incorporated. You also must have paid them over $600 in the entire year added up. So if you've only paid someone less than $600 throughout the whole year, don't bother. Now, getting back to the huddle, we actually did a fun little Spark quiz. I'm just going to go over it with you because I thought it was great. So Jackie came up with a quiz. Jackie's our firm manager, spectacular human being that she is. And she came up with a quiz for our staff. And even I got 1.5 wrong, but I'll give myself a break. So, because there are new things going on. The first thing you need to do when you are deciding or figuring out, hey, who do I have to give a 1099 to, is you need to look at certain categories on your P&L to figure out where they might be. One would be advertising, marketing, promotion. If you hired a company to help you with social media, for example, that could be a 1099 eligible. Buying Facebook ads, no. And plus, Facebook, most likely as a corporation, you're not going to 1099 Facebook, but somebody that you hired to do maybe some social media or even a marketing coach or salesperson, if they're not an employee, most likely they might need a 1099. Payroll, never look at that. Payroll is completely separate. It's one way to look at it. Every time you hire somebody, it's either payroll or 1099, one or the other. Subcontractors, yes. Materials paid to subcontractors, yeah. You actually do need to add those to the 1099. It's whatever amount of money you paid that subcontractor, that small business or human being is what you need to 1099 for, even if it included materials. Professional services you want to look, consulting, referral fees or commissions if they're not employees, absolutely. And then the two other caveats to this are all lawyers, no matter what entity status they are. Lawyers will always get a 1099, and rent. I know this one is kind of up for debate because some people say no, some say yes, but all the research we've done and the majority of CPAs that we work with, yes, no matter what, no matter who your landlord is, rent is always on a 1099. It has its own box for it. And here's the thing. If you don't 1099 for these things and you were to be audited, let's say, they will disallow that expense. So then that all becomes income to you. That's why this is so important. Another thing to add, just equally as important about the 1099s, is if you pay these people, these vendors, these businesses, if you pay them with a credit card, with a debit card, you don't 1099 them. Credit card, debit cards, you do not, no matter what, you don't have to 1099 them. The credit card companies have to take care of that on their end. So thank you, easier, right? PayPal and Venmo, that one, a bit up for debate. We have seen both sides of that. But yesterday when I was doing the research on it, more often than not, I saw that you do not need to 1099 them if you pay subcontractors or vendors with Venmo or PayPal. But again, I've seen both. That's why it's kind of a gray area. And really, to know the right answer, just defer to your CPA, because your CPA is the one that has to check off a box on your tax return that says all eligible 1099s were filed. So really, it all comes down on their shoulders to a point. So ask them. But from our research, credit cards, debit cards, Venmo, and PayPal do not get 1099s if that's the way you paid them. If you pay them by check, online bill payment, or through a line of credit, anything like that, they get a 1099. Now we have the entities that are eligible. So that would be LLCs, partnerships, single member LLCs, individual sole proprietors, And that's it. Everyone, unless they're rent or legal, they get them automatically. But all the corporations do not need a 1099. That would be a C Corp, an S Corp, an LLC taxed as an S Corp, an LLC taxed as a C Corp, um, trust and estates, non-profit, and tax exempt companies do not get 1099s. And finally, when you're looking at the 1099 NEC, that's the non-employee compensation. That's most of the subcontractors and vendors and people that you would issue a 1099. You're using box one. It's pretty simple form. Rent, you're going to use a different form now. That's going to be the 1099 miscellaneous. You're going to use box one. It'll just say rents right on there. Now, for all legal fees, you paying for the use of an attorney, that is the 1099 miscellaneous box 10. And that is going to wrap it up. So just to recap, it's 1099 season. By law, they're due out by January 31st. If they go out after, you could be fined. And I have seen fines come in through the IRS. You have to issue a 1099 to anybody that you paid that's not an employee, that you paid over $600 last year, and that is not an S or a C Corp. You also need a 1099 for rent and lawyers. If you don't do these things, these expenses can and may be disallowed, which then creates more net profit for you, which means your taxes go up, plus you will be fined for not filing these. It's a big mess, and you don't want to get there. So file the 1099s. We're going to follow up this Facebook Live with a blog and some downloads for more information about it if you want to do it yourself. If you'd like us to do them, give us a call. We're doing them every day, morning, noon, and night. Thank you so much. Have a great Tuesday.